out.
All right, guys, so here it is, finally back, the dt466 in the Superduty truck. So I know you guys have been asking for this for a while, and I apologize for not getting it in sooner. A lot's happened in the past year and a half, and we're finally at the point where we're ready to start working on it again. I didn't want to drag it here to my house, get working on it, just to not be able to fully commit, but both me and the owner of the truck are at a point now where we're ready to get some progress going on this thing and hopefully give you some more regular updates and keep it going. We got some parts already for it, and we're both very motivated. So today's going to be mostly just an overview of what we've already done and where we're at with the truck. Some of the stuff that we've made some decisions on some of the parts that we're going to put in it over the past year, and we're going to get the manifold mounted, we're going to get the turbo on, and maybe, if we have time, get the intercooler mounted up. So initially, we weren't really sure what we were going to do as far as the turbo goes. We kind of determined that the best route for right now is to put a stock turbo on it, stock manifold, stock turbo, and get the truck running. A lot of times, when you take on a project this big, if you get too ambitious and you try to make crazy things work, you end up not having time or not having the budget for the little details and the other little things that are required to make the truck run. So we determined best bet, we're going to use a factory dt466 turbo with a factory manifold for now. We do have some plans to do some bigger, better stuff in the future. We're going to be doing some pump work in the future, trying to make some real power out of this thing, but our goal right now is to get this truck running, driving, get all the bugs worked out, make sure all the fabrication, chassis, everything works as it should, and then once we do that, we're going to start doing some modifications. So let's get the factory manifold bolted on. We're going to get the turbo in place, and hopefully it clears this heater box. We'll find out. I got the manifold on here with just a couple of bolts. I mean, I'm not going to secure everything on final. I don't have a gasket in there or anything. I'm just getting this thing on for now to mock everything up. And I tried putting the turbo in, and it had a little bit of a clearance issue. So I had a difficult time getting the turbo on with the center housing and the compressor housing on because everything was hitting on this heater box right here. Well, I should say the evaporator box is really what it is. So there's a little bit of room in here that I think if I modify this evaporator box and just kind of put a little bit of dent in it, I should be able to get this to clear no problem. It's just touching. Either way, I'm going to run a turbo blanket, but turbo fits in there, and then clocking it properly fits right into place. All right, now that we get that turbo mounted up, we can start talking about intercooler. So originally, the 6-liter intercooler sat right inside this cross-member area, right in the whole housing here. And the radiator sat just beyond that into the engine compartment. Unfortunately, we're not going to have enough clearance to have the radiator sit inside of the engine compartment. So we're going to push the radiator back, well, forward, I should say, to where the original intercooler would have sat. Now, obviously, we can't push the intercooler too much farther forward than that. So a solution I came up with is we are going to try using an air-to-water cooler from a 6.7 Ford. There's plenty of guys making big horsepower with these intercoolers, so we know that they flow a decent amount. It's pretty compact, doesn't take up a lot of room, and has, you know, factory supported coolant lines and everything that we can work with. I got all the lines that'll clip right onto this, so we can go to a heat exchanger out front. Definitely experimental. Not sure if it's going to work. I mean, it should. I don't see why not. But what we're going to do is we've decided to move both batteries from the engine compartment to most likely the frame rail. So we're going to use like an Econoline style battery box that hangs the batteries off of the frame underneath the cab. And then this intercooler is going to sit right up on the passenger side front corner behind the headlight. Plenty of room right up in here. We just got to make a couple of brackets, try to mount it up. So I got to make a steel run, try to grab some materials to start building. And then I really don't want to settle on the exact spot for this until we have the alternator and the AC compressor mounted. And the reason I say that is because we're kind of dedicated to whatever the outlets are on this. I could weld on a 90 or a 45 onto this end, and I could definitely do some stuff with this, but I don't want to modify this cooler too much. So we want to make sure that we're not going to be running the hoses straight into the accessories. So I'm going to get a steel run done. We should have a bracket for the alternator hopefully tomorrow, and after we get the alternator mounted up, then we can really start fabricating everything and start getting this and the piping in for the turbo to the intercooler. Another little challenge we had is the factory power steering pump on the DT flows way too much pressure for the Ford Hydro Boost and power steering box. So my plan is to pull that power steering pump off, see exactly how it's driven, and either try to find a pump that matches up to the Ford specifications or try to make a adapter to run a Ford style pump, or I was thinking potentially even like a Cummins style pump that's something more similar to what the Superduty pressure and flow would be. So I'm going to rip that pump off. And then another thing, we plan on continuing to use this air compressor to run an air tank, to have onboard air for whatever reasons we may need it for. I mean, it's already there. Might as well use it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know a lot about how these air compressors work. I know there's supposed to be a cutoff switch and all that to make sure that you don't overpressurize the tank. I'll definitely be looking for some help on that. So if any of you guys have any insight, reach out to me. I'm sure it's pretty simple. I've just never really played with anything air brakes or anything like that. So I'd appreciate some help on that. But I'm going to get that pump off and we'll see what we got. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of work ahead of us, but I'm happy to finally have this truck back here, finally working on it again. We didn't make a lot of progress tonight, but that's okay because for me, tonight's goal was really just to kind of make sure the turbo will fit on the truck and kind of figure out some of the little issues that we were up against the last time I worked on it, which was well over a year and a half ago. For those of you that are new to this project and haven't seen it before, I'll put the links in the description below to the other videos that I did, the initial video and then the first update. And I'm hoping to, at least every other week, try to get another video on this thing. I got to get some materials. I got to figure out what we're going to do for a pump. And from there, we're just going to keep rolling. So, unfortunately, I don't have a lift here, and I don't really plan on putting a lift in my garage here. There's not enough ceiling height, and it's just really not convenient for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the fabrication done on the top side here. We're going to try to get a radiator figured out. We're going to get all the intercooler piping made, get all that stuff all set, and then pull the cab back off of the truck. I had a lot of comments asking me why I didn't clean the motor up and paint it and everything before we put it in the truck. Well, that's because it's coming back out. We're going to take the motor back out, clean everything, paint everything, re-gasket it all, and finish some of the fabrication work on the frame. We have a little bit left to do to kind of gusset everything, and then we'll put the motor back in, put the cab back down, and I'll start on the wiring. The wiring is, believe it or not, going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to use a factory 6-liter wiring harness. I'm going to trim out all the fat, everything we don't need, and hopefully with a few other little tricks I got, we should be able to get the cluster working, get all the gauges working, and hopefully get a few other little quirky things with the Superduty's working, electronic 4x4, that's all in the plans. So, like I said, we got quite a bit of work ahead of us, but I'm pretty confident we're going to make it happen. So if you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching In the Shop.